It's important because business leaders do not talk to legislators. And how do I know that? Because I've been talking to legislators. In fact, Destin Hall is chairman of the House. His education policy advisor is a fellow who is a representative from Wilkes County for 8 years. So months ago, I asked him, well, how often did you hear from business leaders about corporate matters, tax matters, anything? He said, I never heard from business leaders about anything. I said, well, how about K-12 education? Did you ever hear from business leaders about K-12? No. So, well, now you've been with Destin Hall for a year advising him on education. How many business leaders does Destin Hall hear from about K-12 education? He says, none. It's just the same, that we don't hear from business leaders. So I'm just curious, how many of you have contacted a legislator to talk about education, income tax cuts, corporate tax cuts, anything? Raise your hand if you've contacted. So a few people have. Maybe it's job related, but most of us do not. So this education is everyone's business. It's a throwback to the 90s, when was the last time we had a crisis like this in public education. At that time, Governor Hunt pulled Governor Martin, who just finished his 2 terms, together. And they said, we are 48th in the country in teacher pay and 46th in total funding. That's not a recipe for success for North Carolina. We have to do something. He invited business leaders, big companies, power companies, banks, utilities, big private companies. 40 of them came to Raleigh in one afternoon, and they heard the problem from a Democrat and a Republican former governor. And in one afternoon, they all agreed, you don't have a choice. You've got to raise taxes because we have to fund education better than we're doing now. And when you do that, we will support you. And that's what happened. And that was the last time we had a tax increase in North Carolina, corporate or individual, was the late 90s. By 2001, we were at 25th in funding across the country and 25th, a little higher than 25th in teacher pay. Now, bringing it forward to today, what do we think of when we think of education? Do you think much? Not many of you probably keep up. Some of you might keep up with it. What do we hear about business? We're number 1 for business, right? Or number 2, depending on who's rating us. Everything must be pretty good. No problems, no concerns. But I'm going to walk you through some of the things that have happened, and you've been aware of some of this. So on your first handout, don't quite look at that slide, but the first handout is just for color, and I want you to look at the first page. We ended up being last in the Southeast in teacher pay at $41,000. And if you look at that first page, you'll see Mississippi was higher than North Carolina. Now, a number of you look older, and if you're like me, we always said, well, no matter how bad it gets back here, thank God for Mississippi, because at least we're better than somebody. If you're from Mississippi, that's not being meant to insult you. It's just that Mississippi is the poorest state in the country, and we're always better than Mississippi. But if you look at this, you'll see, and if you look at this slide up here, you'll see Virginia and South Carolina. And we are, remember, the valley of humility between 2 mountains of conceit. Raise your hand if you've heard that. Certainly, if you've lived in North Carolina for any length of time, you know that. We always think of ourselves as being the nicest people, and they can think they're better than us, but they're really not. So we ended up at $41,000 in teacher pay, and that just started July 1 of 24, up from $37,000. Now, in July 1 of this year, the legislature raised it to $48,000. But if you look at flip over that to the back page of that first handout, and you're going to see the southern states that primarily fund education through their state legislatures, you'll see the path of education pay. Legislators set the payroll, and you can see where North Carolina starts and ends. Now, we had no budget in the state for the last 2 years, and legislators caught heck for it, and they especially heard from border counties. Because as you can see on that slide, and you can see if you could read this better, Virginia and South Carolina were paying $5,000 at least more than North Carolina. And if you live in a border county and you have a license to teach that you earned by going to college, then you can go across the border and teach in any state and make at least $5,000 more. And when you're only making 41, 5,000 is a lot. So you can go back to your home county, but not teach there. And we have a lot of border counties. And the border county people were screaming about it. So they raised teacher pay from $41,000 to $48,000 for first-year teachers. Okay. So I want you to take your next handout. It's a chart. This comes, by the way, all this is public information. This comes right from the general statutes, as does the next information. This was in July 1 of 24, when they put in a $4,000 raise, similar to what just happened, is you'll see that's 10 payments of $4,100 a month. So if you're looking at this handout right here, you can see on the left side, this is all we pay. We don't pay for master's degrees anymore or PhDs, just undergraduate degrees. And we started at $4,100 a month. And then you can see every year you would get a $75 per month raise. So on a 10 payments, it was $41,000. Then next year, $41,750. Then $42,500. Right. So some improvement, but it took 15 years to get from $41,000 to $53,880. Now the reason teacher pay is so important, the number one line item in the state budget is K-12 education at over $12 billion on a $34 billion budget. And of that $12 billion, over 60% is teacher pay. We have 100,000 teachers in our state. So when you raise teacher pay, it costs a lot. Okay, just keep that in mind. But it took from $41,000, 15 years later, you would make $53,880. Now let me ask you, in your business, this is going back to July of 24, how many of your people did you hire that were going to make $41,000 and you told them, you know, you stick around 15 years, you'll be making $53,880. Now, I promise you, not a single business ever survives like that. What's worse is what happens after year 15. So look on that schedule. This is, again, 2 years ago, but you're going to find what they just did didn't solve a problem, it made it worse. So after that, you don't get any more raises. You don't get any more raises as a teacher, unless you make it to year 25 and you get one more raise and never again. You mentioned tutoring. I've been tutoring in a magnet school downtown Raleigh for second graders. They're very cute. I am qualified to tutor second grade math. They teach it differently, but it's still addition and subtraction, and I'm still pretty good at it. So I can, and they are cute, and they love the people who visit them and bring them lifesavers. So, but this is the pay scale. It was put in 41 at 41,000. It moved up from 37, and it put us out of last place at that time. Then we didn't have a budget for 2 years. They proudly came in the legislature this year and changed it to 48,000. Okay. That next slide is, the next handout is 48,000. As you see, 41 was a problem because everyone was more than we were. But, and don't go to that slide quite yet. Go back one, please. Okay. This handout, thank you. This handout right here shows the July 1 of 24 and the July 1 of 26. This handout right here. So let's look at that one, please, in front of you, because you'll see the 4,100 per month, 41,000, just add a zero to it. And you see it went to 4,800 a month. That's not on the screen. It's only in front of you. It's not up top. 48,000. And look at what, if you stay a year, you'll make 48,250 the next year. Then 48,500. Then 48,750. After 4